Hi everyone, welcome back to Career 360. This is Vyakhya. We are back again with another video of MBA Talks. This video is going to be very interesting for you because today we have someone who has cracked multiple exams. Today we have Pushti with us and she's here to tell us all about her life at IIFT and also her preparation journey. Welcome Pushti.
Hi, Vyakya. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
All good. It's MBA life, so you honestly never know how you will be the next minute. So it's fine.
Okay, so I'll ask the most generic question to begin with.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your profile and why you decided to pursue MBA.
Okay, so about my background, it's a little unconventional. I am a BSc Biotechnology graduate from Mithibai College in Mumbai. And the reason I decided to pursue an MBA, well, it actually, my entire journey during my undergrad ties into why I decided to do an MBA. I'd always been a hardcore science student. I'd never seen or envisioned myself doing an MBA or getting into a corporate journey. But during the second year of the lockdown, during the second year of my college, the lockdown set in and we were confined to our homes. And I'd always been a stationery and an art nerd. So I got out all my sketchbooks to, get back into my unkempt hobbies. And because of that, I decided to stitch a journal on my own. I saw a couple of YouTube videos and somehow serendipitously through word of mouth and organic marketing, the word spread in our closer circles, and for some reason orders had started pouring in. So
Okay.
once I got through that initial round of what is going on, I thought that this was a good business opportunity and eventually decided to scale up by importing journaling supplies from the Philippines and Malaysia. And that's eventually how my business transitioned. I started conducting workshops online. And during the course of that, I realized that business is something that I was really interested in, especially, marketing, since I was the only person behind the wheel when it came to my startup. It gave me a lot of exposure and the confirmation that research is something that I don't want to go into. And so when I graduated with my BSc Biotechnology in April of 2022, I decided that I'd be taking the CAT that year and I started preparing. So I had roughly 4 to 5 months of preparation before I sat for my first entrance test. So that basically sums up my undergraduate background. And as for 10th and 12th, I was a science student. So not an engineer, so it didn't give me any benefits with mathematics when I was preparing for CAT. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay, that's great. So apart from CAT, what all other MBA entrance exams that you get and what was your performance in those exams?
So the first exam that I decided to take was NMAT. I took it 2 weeks prior to CAT. I wanted to, like, CAT for me was one of my most important exams. So I thought of, getting out my exam jitters 2 weeks prior if possible. So on the 13th of November, I took my NMAT. My score in NMAT was 257, and I did convert the call for NMIMS Mumbai. But eventually, when I got other colleges, I decided to switch over. Post that, I took CAT in the end of November. A couple of weeks after that, I appeared for my CAT. Um, a week later, I had IFT, and IFT, I ended up with a score of 99.63 percentile. In terms of my CAT, I don't remember my performance, but I do remember that I did not convert that. So that's that. And ZAT, I got XLRI Delhi. And since I wanted to go for a trade exposure much more, since I had experience with my business and trade was something that I was interested in, I decided to opt for IFT.
Oh,
And in terms of CAT, I got a percentile of 98.38. All my, as you might have seen my profile, that I do not really have that greater score in 12th grade since I was preparing for entrance tests. So that cost me a couple of calls from IIMs, and I was waitlisted at SP.
okay.
But the converts that I had were all the cap calls. So barring the old six, I had the converts from other IIMs. And I was set to go to IIM Udaipur until the last convert, that is IFT, came through. And since it was my best call, I opted for that.
That's great. That's great. So all these exams that you have given, what was the pattern difference that you found in these exams and how did you customize your preparation according to these exams?
Well, for one, in the first 2 to 3 months of my preparation journey, I solely focused on ensuring that my basics were strong. There was no particular strategy that I had in mind, except for one thing that is start taking mocks from day one. Like I had enrolled for a offline coaching at IMS since a couple of subjects were new to me, and I would require help, especially since time was not really on my side. I had opted for IMS, and since I had access to their mocks, I started taking them from day one. Like I remember the first mock that I took, I had around what 30 to 40 percentile overall, because I hardly knew that was the first time I was seeing a DILR question. But the key was to, not get demotivated, just keep at it. One mock a week since the start of my preparation journey. I think that made a world of difference, because by the time I got to the serious phase where I just had mocks to take, just past year questions to take care of, I knew what strategy worked for me. I knew what my strength was, what my weakness was, how to prioritize, and but knowing that, it's not just about selection, but it's about elimination of options when it comes to VRC. So that really helped me customize my entire journey. And apart from that, I was a part of IMS is a club 100 as well. So that put me in touch with a lot of aspirants, good aspirants from around the country. So if I ever had a problem, I just post it on the group, and I'd end up networking with a lot of people. We'd help each other out. So connecting with people who are as serious for the competition as you are makes a difference, makes a huge difference, and makes sure that you keep going. So that is something that really helps throughout your journey.
Okay, that's great. So let's talk a little bit more about your CAT prep. In CAT, what is the section that you found difficult amongst the three sections?
Uh, so Cat 22 really threw a curveball at me when it came to DILR. Like I was always apprehensive about quant. And so accordingly, I changed my strategy, like you mentioned in the previous question, that once I took the first mock for NMAT a week leading up to NMAT. So the free mocks that the website provides, I decided to take those. And I realized that math was always going to be a problem for me. Quant was the one area that I was lacking at. So, of course, the last 1 week that I had left leading up to CAT, that's also the area that I chose to focus on, formulas and all that were there. But DILR was honestly the biggest surprise. So up until CAT, it was just, focused on solving math questions, especially those that had appeared in the past year questions. You don't need to know everything in the paper. Your objective is not to solve all the questions, score 66. It's just to ensure that you clear the cutoff by a good margin. That's all. So so what actually happened in my CAT was that I ended up scoring the highest in my quant. Verbal, which was actually my strongest section, came in second, and DILR, I was in slot 3, and it was a horrible paper, to say the least. Like I made some poor choices when it came to selecting the sets to crack, and by the time I realized that I had 5 minutes left in the paper, I hadn't fully cracked any set. So I just remembered what my mentor from IMS had told me once, that it's not over until it's over. You never know what can work in your favor, and if you have nothing to lose, go all in. So whatever half-baked solutions I had for all the sets, I just decided to mark MCQs at random on what I thought could be the answer. And I got the percentile of 85.25, and for most IIMs, the cutoff is at 85 percentile.
Yeah.
So I cleared by a razor thin margin. So I think DILR was honestly one of the worst sections. Like I came out of CAT thinking I would have to repeat next year. There's no way that I'm getting a B school this year.
That's a crazy story. So how many hours did
Yeah.
you devote to CAT prep on a daily basis?
I do not have any hours as such. I just set a particular target for myself. Some days you just on a roll and you finish subjects quickly. Some days you just not. So it's fine, tailor accordingly. But just one thing that I ensured was that if I am putting in the hours diligently throughout the week, I would give myself 1 day completely off, not thinking about CAT, not touching my books, just going out, meeting friends, because it's essentially an aptitude based test. The freshness of your mind determines what your output will be. The final day, the most smartest of the candidates could fail just because you are not in the right frame of mind.
Mm.
So I was not too pressed about the number of hours that I put in, as much as putting in 100% whenever I actually did.
Okay. So since you mentioned that verbal was your strongest section, so what would you recommend someone who wants to improve in verbal section?
That depends on the amount of time that you have left. If the exam is right on your head, the best I can say is read A1 articles. At least get comfortable with the language, so you're okay with the interpretation. But if you have good time on your hands, if you are planning for maybe a retake, or you have a few months on your hand, I would suggest reading. Nothing ever comes close to reading, and it's not just because it helps you build a vocabulary or a knowledge base. it's not restricted to just your entrance exam. In terms of interviews, I have had countless interviews where my talking point has been just about books that I've read, what my takeaways have been, why I feel certain authors make an impact. It is something that you can talk about. It is something that will improve your diction, your oratory skills. It gives you something to talk about more than anything else. The ability to hold a conversation, the ease with which you read, improving your reading speed, ensuring that you're focused. So reading is something that it cannot be discounted for. Like a lot of people would also suggest that, maybe start with nonfiction that gets you into reading, it builds your knowledge. But I don't think reading is a habit that you can sustain if you're not interested in it. You need to get over that initial barrier. So even if it takes fiction for you to get interested, even if it's an Agatha Christie novel or maybe Harry Potter for that matter, go for it. Just ensure that you have a reading habit, that you're reading something at least 5 minutes a day. That is something I'd suggest hands down.
Okay. So what do you think are some of the tips or tricks that worked in your favor, and what are some of the mistakes that one should avoid during their CAT prep?
Hmm. One mistake I think all aspirants are prone to is that the closer exam gets, the more frantic you get, because there was I don't know, a brief period for 2 to 3 weeks in the month prior to my CAT that I was just not seeing the results that I wanted to, and there was a steady decline in my percentile, and it was frustrating to say the least. Because at that point, there is nothing left to study new as such. You're gonna have to strengthen and bolster all the concepts that you already have. The past year question papers were just throwing me off, and one mistake I made was not taking it a little easy. That your aim as you get closer to your exam is not to take 2 or 3 mocks a day, do one mock every day. That's not really going to help if it just saturates your brain. So that is one mistake that I made initially, but fortunately I had really good mentors who always looked out for me. So the strategy that I eventually got to was to do a mock a day and then take the time to analyze it first. Spend hours on it if you want. Go through every question. If there are similar type of questions that you can find, solve those. Find out where you went wrong more so than what made you, just reach that 98 percentile. After a point, it's just going to be numbers. You could score 98 in a mock and land up at 40 in an actual exam, and the vice versa is true as well. That is something that I did wrong, but the presence of a mentor really helps. And something that I feel really helped was, like I mentioned, taking mocks and not being afraid of the score that you get, honestly. Uh, Nothing will make you more immune to pressure than consistently taking mocks. And make sure that you don't do it in the comfort of your home. Go to an exam center if possible. There will be classes around you, there will be noisy areas, cafes, libraries, wherever possible. Just sit and take the mock in a noisy environment. Learn how to focus no matter what happens, because there are going to be hundreds of candidates. There are going to be hundreds of supervisors that are shuffling around asking you to sign while you're in the middle of solving a tricky set. So you need to make sure that you are impervious to any forms of distraction before you sit for the exam.
Okay, so let's discuss more about mocks. What was your mock analysis process? How many hours did you devote it to it? And how many mocks approximately did you take for the entire preparation journey?
So the preparation journey, I would say I must have taken 21 to 22 mocks and past year question papers up till 2016 or 2017.
Oh,
So the mock series that I had taken was IMS. A friend of mine was enrolled at Time, and a third one was at Career Launcher. So
okay.
sometimes we take the mocks on each other's behalf to just test what is your position and how you're able to handle. Because what if you get comfortable to one class's style and
Mm,
it just throws a curveball on you when the actual exam comes.
yeah.
So that must have been the number of mocks that I took, and I think there were a couple of tough ones that I attempted from CrackU as well.
Okay.
So total, let's bring the total to around say 28 to 30 of those.
Okay.
And in terms of analysis, so I actually had one of my mentors take a session once my first mock was done. Like they sat with me, each subject's professor had gone through my paper, and they had pointed out what the mistakes had been and and they well helped me dissect what my thought process was. So once I got the hang of that, I started doing it on my own. So once the result was out, a good 6 to 7 hours could be easily spent on analyzing the mocks in the beginning. Eventually, you'll get faster at it, but don't be afraid to devote an entire day to it also if that's what you require. So yeah, that's about it. It's just that you need to be comfortable with all the mistakes that you made and have the confidence that if this question comes up next, I'm not going to screw it up next time.
Who were these mentors that you were talking about?
So for verbal, I had Aditi Kudwa. She was someone who really understood my style and what was my strength, and she'd help me dissect my uh, mistakes accordingly. And she'd also been very instrumental when it came to writing my SOPs and preparing for PIs, preparing for VATs. So if you are lucky to find a mentor who is there with you every step of the way, who knows you inside out, it's going to be a huge blessing. For quant, I had Pranav Upadhyay. He was the one who would always, persistently stay with me for all my doubts, and I would always bother him at all times of the hour. So I knew I'd be lazy at home, so I'd always go to my center and sit there. And since he'd always be there, I could ask my question the moment it appeared. There was no wait or a lag time between the doubt popping up in my mind and him solving it for me. And apart from that, for DILR, I had Dheeraj sir, Scrabblers sir from IMS Thane, who took our sessions for for the Club 100. So there were a lot of people involved in this that honestly helped me out a lot.
Okay. So after these exams were over, how did you start your GDPI preparation?
So IFT was on I think 18th of December, and I had my SNAP exam the same day. So two exams were a lot, and ZAT was scheduled for the first or the second week of January. So there was a huge time difference between them, and just a few days after ZAT, I had IIM Rohtak's interview lined up. So once my IFT's test was done, I started preparing for my GDPI. Again, IMS had very thoroughly planned sessions where they informed us on how to write an SOP and what additional readings could you do for GDs. So my preparation honestly started with I just opened up a Word doc and I dumped my entire life story on it, like events from my childhood that I thought were influential. How did I develop my hobbies? What are some unique points about me? SP Gen's form actually, which is released way early on, it has a lot of details that need to be filled in about yourself, about your initiatives. So I had a rough idea in mind and what I wanted to do, what I wanted. I wrote information about my undergraduation, possible questions that could come up, any news related to biotechnological improvements or current technological progress that is observed in that field. I wrote about my family and what my family business is about my entire background. So just it was one huge dump on a paper, and then I sent it to my verbal mentor, and she went through it and she said these are the points that are acceptable, these aren't, and then accordingly you put together a precise answer that prepares you for the most obvious MBA question: tell me about yourself and why MBA. So these two questions are answers that you're going to have to know at the tip of your, like, always. You could be woken up from a sleep and you'd have to answer that question. So that is how you thoroughly prepare for it. And since I had a lot of mock interviews conducted by IMS as well, that helped because stress, and they genuinely put me in a stressful situation. And there were times where I had to like rack my brain. I remember one question that I had was since I'm allergic to cilantro and I love solving crossword puzzles. So anagrams is something that I enjoy. So an interviewer had asked me, "Can you give me an anagram for cilantro?" And that really put me on the spot. And they told me that, what, we're going to give you time to think about it. Until then, answer other questions. So you have to, parallelly, frantically, you're trying to think of an anagram and you're ensuring that you answer questions. So practice really helps when it comes to that. That is something that helped me for my GDPR. In terms of GDs, as I mentioned, Club 100, I had connected with a lot of people, like-minded people who had received good calls, and we'd make it a point to, discuss current events. So, since going through newspapers is something that's really important for every MBA aspirant, I'd take up one newspaper, my friend would take up in another, and then we'd corroborate at the end of the day as to, did we find something different? What are our views on it? Form an opinion. That's what I'd suggest. Form an opinion about the events. What do you think about it? That is something that comes up quite frequently, and not just in PIs but in VATs as well. And I had mentors who would assign me topics every day for my VAT preparation: abstract topics, political narrative, anything and everything under the roof. So that consistent practice really helps. And I just suggest, honestly, find like-minded people. It helps you more than anything else, and it pushes you to do better even when you're down.
Okay, that's great. So apart from IFT, what were some of the calls that you get during that year?
So as I mentioned, SP Gen, I had a call for marketing, but I was waitlisted by a very small margin. I had converted NMIMS Mumbai, but so I accepted my call at NMIMS Mumbai first. Then I received my calls from IIMS, IIM and I had switched over to IIM Udaipur. So MD, I was waitlisted at MDI core program as well. Other convert that I had was from Great Lakes, XLRI Delhi.
Okay.
And yes, IFT was my best call, I'd say. So when the convert came, it was honestly a no-brainer. I just switched over immediately.
Okay. For the cap calls, how was the GDPI process for IIM Udaipur, or was it a separate interview, or was it a common cap round for these colleges?
So for these colleges, Rohtak had a separate interview. That was my first interview in the first and second week of. That was the very first PI that I ever sat for during my entire season of GDPIs. So that was different, but they asked me questions about my business primarily because that is one different talking point. You're not going to have a lot of aspirants who have business to show in their background. Plus, at that point, I had already accepted a job as a teaching faculty. So I was preparing hotel management and law aspirant. So that is something that intrigued them as to why pedagogy and then switching over to management career. You've been all over the place. Do you think this is confusion or are you looking to develop your personality? So they're not looking for any right answer. They just want to see how your thought process is. So that was my first interview when it came to IIMs. Post that I had Amritsar. Amritsar was a lovely interview. I had great panelists who we ended up talking a lot about politics in Mumbai and how is the scenario there different. What would I love to improve about it? I had questions about so I come from Borivali in Mumbai. So they asked me what is the origin of that name. We went into that depth as well. And I think my CAP interview was one of the best, most enjoyable interviews I ever had. So it was bang in the middle of a very hectic schedule, and just before the interview, I like to relax a little. So I was watching an episode of Tom and Jerry before my screen went live with the panelists, and they asked me what were you doing while you were waiting for the interview to start. So I mentioned that, sir, I was watching Tom and Jerry. They're like, which episode? And we ended up talking 5 minutes about which Tom and Jerry episode I was watching. And most of the questions were about situational questions and as to what kind of a person am I when I'm put in a tough situation? How do I handle it? How is my decision making process? So overall, it was a very enjoyable interview. And this was the interview for Udaipur, Ranchi, Trichy, Raipur, all of them combined.
Okay, great. So, Pushti, usually these management entrance exam is given mostly by people who are either from engineering background or who are from commerce background. So, how do you think a person who is either from a arts background or a science background convinces the interviewer during the GTPI that they are suited for an MBA program?
That is a good question, yes. See, when it comes to students in engineering and commerce, they will always have an edge over you, not just outside of B school, in the B school as well. Like first term, you're going to be scrambling about trying to figure out what is going on in a balance sheet, and they'll have the answer even before you can look at the balance sheet. So that a disadvantage is always going to be there, but all the management institutes have points for academic diversity for a reason. It's because you bring something different to the table and you have to make sure that you highlight that. I have a classmate who majored in fashion merchandising. So when it comes to retailing, she's unbeatable. When it comes to aesthetics and understanding consumer behavior, we'd go to her. My background in genetics is something that has always intrigued professors because what is like biotechnology is on the rise. There are biotechnological parks that are going up. Budget spending and expenses are being increased when we talk about my field. And COVID was a huge turn point. We got to know what varicella lines are, how are the vaccines prepared. So if you are from a different field, you're not at a disadvantage as long as you know how to sell it. And that's the cusp of what an MBA graduate wants to do, right? So you need to ensure that you stand out from the rest, the way you think, what you bring to the table, the diversity that you have. I also got asked about that you're coming from a pure research field with zero work experience. How else do you think I'm going to add to it? But while that is true that I do not have work experience, I do not bring any experience to the table, it's also true that I'm moldable. I fit into a pedagogy easier. I am still in that student mode. I will be keeping up with my academics. I am a lucrative prospect for FMCG companies, for any company actually looking for marketing roles, because you are moldable. You will be flexible when it comes to adjusting to a work environment. So you have to ensure that you show the best version of yourself, no matter what field you come from. And honestly, it doesn't matter. A lot of once your composite score is calculated and all the factors have been taken in, there's nothing that stands between you and the college. You just have to give your best, and you just have to trust that the interviewer knows what kind of student fits into their college the best. They know what kind of students will perform and thrive under the pedagogy of their college, and they will accept you. There's not much to stress over, honestly.
Oh, okay, that's great. So you had calls from a lot of great colleges and you chose IFT as your final selection. Why was IFT chosen by you as your final selection? And what do you think are some of the factors that a candidate must keep in mind while they're selecting a B school for themselves?
Okay, so well, B school, you could have the most random reason to select a B school. For once, I know one factor that I had in mind was that I'm from Mitibai College, which is the SVKM group of colleges. It's right opposite NMIMS. So I've grown up in Mumbai. I've stayed at home, and I did not want that comfort zone anymore. I did not want to be in a college in Mumbai. I wanted to step outside of my comfort zone, carve out a niche for myself, and I wanted a campus life more than anything else. So that was one of the prime reasons why I decided to switch over from NMIMS. It was not to discredit the institute. It was just something that I didn't want. So you could have the most arbitrary reason for choosing a B school. You just have to trust your gut that you will thrive wherever you go. That is one primary reason. Of course, there are common reasons like, placements matter a lot, pedagogy, the image that it holds in the corporate world. But even apart from that, if you feel like you have selfish reasons, it's fine to decide on a different B school. And IFT particularly was something that I really liked, was that as I mentioned, after CAT, I genuinely had no idea what my future held for me. I did not think I would get any calls through CAT. So IFT was the next best shot that I had, 2 weeks of time that I had, and I gave it my all. And with that nothing to lose mindset, I think that's what translated into a really good performance for me in the test. And IFT had always intrigued me for the reason that I had dealt in imports and exports. Trade always fascinated me. Now that you think about a globalized world, there is no such thing as domestic business. Every startup that you want is looking to be a unicorn, be transnational, be global. So it really blurs that lines. Plus, many colleges have the IB program, that is the International Business Program, but they have a very different pedagogy. Whereas IFT's MBA IB program is quite similar to the PGP programs that other colleges have, particularly the IIMs. We go on semester exchanges just like other colleges. We have the subjects that other colleges do. In fact, we have the additional benefit of studying trade as an extra subject. We have that as an elective. I have a trade minor. I have chosen a trade minor as well. So that is one advantage that you have, learning about customs, how you can exploit it, exploit as in a good way to your benefit. But that is something that you learn additionally. Plus, we also have the benefits of going on port visits in our fifth trimester. So that extra exposure is something that you really enjoy, something that is offbeat. And the subjects, honestly, it does not make that much of a difference if you select an IB program at IFTs. That is something that really drew me to this college. The roles and all that we've been offered, they have been quite similar. In fact, we have the additional advantage of being recruited by trade companies as well. So honestly, there was nothing to lose, and IFT has had a good legacy for years. So it was honestly a no-brainer. It was something that I really wanted, and I'm glad that the interviewer thought I was worthy of fitting it.
That's great. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about profile building.
Hmm.
How much do you think important is profile building when it comes to BE school admissions?
Profile building as in extracurriculars, work ex, what are we talking about?
Just the overall profile of a candidate. How much importance do you think it has when you are going for a final selection, and
Hmm.
what are interviewers looking in a profile? So how can a fresher work on their profile to so that they can increase their chances at getting their dream B schools?
Hmm. Profile. Honestly, I understand more than many that how important it has been. My 12th score has been a huge deterrent in a lot of colleges that I thought I would get on the basis of my percentile, but I didn't, just because my 12th score wasn't good enough for me to get a decent composite score. And you are dealing with people who are scoring 98, 99, and you are not on par with them. So of course you're bound to feel weird about it. So and you need other things that make up for it. So profile building is extremely important. While you are taking your entrance tests, CAT, IIFT, you think that's the toughest thing in the world. Once you're done with the exam, you realize that was just the first step. PI and GDPI, honestly, as a whole, takes a huge toll on you. And during that entire part, it is important to remember, like I mentioned, that you just have to trust the discretion of your interviewer, that your extracurriculars make up for it, something in your profile that makes you stand out. So for me, this was essentially having my business, extracurriculars. I was a part of the cultural committee. I was part of the economic transcript as a magazine. So one place taught me graphic designing. One place taught me how to, just put myself out there, win laurels for your um, college, and just make a name for your college. Ensure that you are adding value to the institute as much as it's adding to you. So that is something you really need to highlight. Even as a fresher, I understand that you don't have any work ex, but you do have things that you might have done in college that you're proud of, that are not less than any other achievement that people might add in their CVs. So profile building, while it is very subjective, it never hurts to have been someone who was over enthusiastic in school when it came to extracurriculars. Your internships, your research projects, all of it really matters. There have been times where interviews just end up talking about your final year projects. What did you do in an internship? What was your favorite subject in college that might be, enough to make your profile stand out. There was one interview that I had. One of the interviewers had actually taken a workshop that I'd conducted online, and that's how they knew what my work exactly was, and we ended up bonding over our mutual love for art and books. So you never know what works out in your favor. Just go all in. I understand it's a little daunting for freshers to not have any work experience, but once you get into college, you realize how different even your perspective is. So just do the best that you can.
Okay, fine. Pushti, this year, lot of these schools face challenge to place their students for the summer placements. Even a lot of IIMs were struggling. Was it the same at IFT? And how was your interview experience for the summer placements? What were some of the companies that were coming, and the domains that they were offering?
So that is a lot of information. So the complete details of what companies we had on campus, and of when we were signed out, what were the roles offered. I think you'd gain a better idea of that if you would look through IFT's official LinkedIn page. The reports have been published there by our corporate relations and placement division. So I think that would provide a much better perspective. As for my own personal case, I was always interested in marketing, and that is what I'd hoped to gain a role in. And I'd always, thought of FMCG as a very coveted area that I'd always want to work in, understanding what consumer behavior is on the most ground level, uh, catering to a huge rural segment with increasing disposable incomes. That is something that had interested me, and I was extremely fortunate to be placed in a company that I really liked. I will be interning at Godrej Consumer Products Limited. My internship will be starting in April. So that marketing role that I wanted, particularly in FMCG, worked out well for me. And as for the difficulties that colleges face, honestly, it's just a blip. It's a cycle. It's a cyclic process, and you just have to wait it out. So any dents that you see, it's not a testament to what the institute is like. It's just a market condition that will eventually wash over.
That's true. That's true. Okay. So IFT is a unique B school. Tell us how it is different from other colleges. What is the curriculum like? What all subjects do you guys study over there? How is it
Hmm.
different from other B schools?
Well, like I mentioned, trade is the biggest USP possible. We have a very strong network of alumni who are well established in the field of trade. And that is one subject that has been, really offbeat, and something that you will not see any other V school student have. So, well, the first subject that I was exposed to was trade documentation in my second trimester, and a lot of us loved it so much that we ended up picking trade as our major or as our minor. I personally chose as a minor to learn more about agri commodities and how sectoral commodities work, and overall, that is something that's very unique to IFT that you'll be exposed to. And trade companies also are fantastic to work with. Like, you will be learning things that you never will get to learn from anywhere else. Like, I have professors come in directly from picking up a shipment or getting a process cleared. They put in pictures of the projects that they are working on currently, what HS codes were applied, how did they take care of a certain legal procedure. So that is something that is very dynamic and something that we love doing here. And the subjects that we also study, it's not just restricted to the domestic condition. You learn about the globe as a whole. So it's not just economics, it's international economics. How does it affect world uh, from a very macroscopic perspective? The marketing techniques that we learn, we also talk about how a company goes from domestic to national to international. So that transition that it teaches you, that is something that is very unique to IFT, and honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
Okay. Pushti, a lot of people are still unaware about MBA in international business. So, what do you think is your definition of MBA in international business, and what do you think are some of the career prospects that one can go on after pursuing this?
Oh, well, speaking from IFT's perspective, I cannot speak about other colleges that provide an IB course since theirs is drastically different. There are colleges that have 1 year of course that you finish here, and the second year that you'll be studying abroad. Placement is not provided by the college. We do not have that case. However, we have a very active placement committee that works for our placements in bringing companies. Like I mentioned, the roles that we were offered were the same as the ones that other colleges get, plus the ones in trade. So you are actually being offered an additional advantage. And well, honestly, the whole process, it's just something that you'll enjoy when you get here. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Um,
Oh, you can
yeah,
tell
well, I
us
mean, that's.
about the career prospects, like what are the roles that one can get offered after pursuing MBA in international business?
Yeah, so honestly, we had a few interns, a few of our seniors who interned in international locations last year. We had Nigeria, we had Dubai. These were prospects that you don't find elsewhere. So that part about that international business is that it gives you international exposure as well. But if you are someone who goes through the entire process and you realize that you don't want an international prospect, you want to study here with the same roles, brand management, sales and marketing, market research, you have that access as well. So your career prospects do not change. They only get enhanced in terms of extra trade roles being offered. That's about it.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's come to some lighter questions. What are some of the activities that you do at IIFT to get away with all the hustle of MBA life?
Uh, uh, so actually, all the FBA hustle that we say, it's just a combination of amount of work that you put in, ensure that you party twice that amount. That's the entire mantra that all P school students live by. Live from 9 a.m. to 6, say we might have classes and surprise quizzes and tests. And like I mentioned, I haven't had weekends off in a couple of weeks because I had a lot of electives that opened up the trimester. So there's studying that's always constantly going on, but that covers barely 50% of your preschool life. Apart from there are clubs and committees and cells that you could join. For one, I'm a member of the IFT Media Committee. Media is something that had always interested me. So that is something that I chose for my first year. And through that, I got the chance to. So this year we piloted a new series on YouTube called IFT Unplugged, where we are interviewing students from IFT who bring something different to the table, who don't just have academic achievements to their name. They have accomplished a lot more in life, something that should be highlighted, should be on the forefront. So that is something that we piloted as students. That amount of autonomy that you get, it pushes you to be more creative. It pushes you to go outside your books and case studies. So that is something that I enjoyed. Apart from that, we just recently concluded our cultural fest, Kovadi. We had Benny Dayal performed, so that was one hell of a concert that I'll always remember. Apart from that, I particularly enjoy badminton, so I do end up playing badminton. Delhi is a lovely place to roam around. This is my first time here as well, first time away from home, so that exploring always goes on. And of course, you've heard about the infamous MBA rages and parties that happen so frequently. So that is something that we enjoy. Media keeps me occupied. We have our event TEDx IIFT Delhi coming up, so that keeps me busy. In fact, after coming to college, since I started working with designing elements a lot, I decided to pick up a few softwares. So I was already familiar with Adobe Creative Suite, but now I decided to, experiment around with Procreate on my iPad, and I started sketching here as well. So there have been a lot of things that I picked up since coming to college. It's not just, balance sheets and balance scorecards that you're confined to.
Okay. So when it comes to campus life, how important do you think is networking during MBA?
Hmm. Well, networking at this as a first year student, it is a little difficult to grasp the impact, but you do realize that when you meet other B school students through either the course of your internships or case competitions, life projects, that how refreshing it is to meet other people. Networking is not just for the sake of you give me a job, I give you a job, or help me out if I'm ever stuck in a quarry. It's for bouncing around ideas, if it's to get fresh perspective. And every person that you meet in a B school has had a different background, a different upbringing. So the amount of exposure that it brings you, it's unparalleled. So even if you don't, if you think it's selfish to talk to people just for the sake of asking for jobs and securing your future as a part of the IFT network, it's not just for that. It's to explore and grow as a person as well. So networking, while that's term is a little reductive, it is something that's you genuinely enjoy once you get the hang of it.
Okay, great. Okay, so my next question is just another version of where do you see yourself in 5 years? I want to ask you, what are your future plans after MBA? What are your career plans? What are your aspirations after MBA?
Um, so the business that I had started, it was very serendipitous. It was not something I had planned at all. And since then, I've been open to new opportunities a lot. Even the teaching stint that I had, it was something that I had not planned. The offer came up. I had 3 months before I joined college. I was like, why not? Let's take it up. So I don't have anything concrete as such. At this point, honestly, all I want is to do well in my internship. It's going to start soon. I'm nearing the end of my first year. A totally different person from what I was a year ago. So right now, honestly, my only goal is to do well at my internship. Post that, I only know the specific that I want to work in the field of marketing, maybe building brands, brand management, doing sales, understanding the groundwork. But I don't have any concrete plan as such. So just going with the flow for now.
That's completely fine. Best of luck for that.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So before we end, how would you describe your journey till now? Like from preparing for CAT and IIFT exam to making it to IIFT finally. How would you describe your journey so far?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
It's a,
It's been unbelievable. It's honestly unbelievable. You asked me for my plan 5 years from now. 5 years ago, I was a student working with sunflower stem cells with no idea of what I would get into, thinking about where my final year project would be. I interned as a scientific content writer and I created illustrations for a biotechnological magazine. And from that, going to a business to get preparing for this entrance exam, it's been a crazy journey. And you just see yourself change as a person. You see yourself grow more. You start thinking more in an organized manner. You start thinking about what drives other people and understanding objects as they, not just as they are, but what is the motive behind it. It's just been crazy, honestly. In a B school, you never know what the rest of your night is going to be like, let alone the next week or the next month or the next year. It's honestly just been crazy. All I'd say is that enjoy this because you're always going to look back on these years and always with a smile of your face. Honestly, I feel bad that I'm done with 50% of my MBA. It flew by in a flash and I didn't even realize it. Something that I do to keep myself reminded of the good moments is that I always click Polaroids of good moments. I get it printed and it's right opposite on my room wall right now.
okay.
So yeah, just remember the good times, honestly. There's no way you'll be done with this time before you even realize it.
Okay. All right. Okay, so this was so much fun talking to you. I'm sure a lot of students will find your journey inspirational, and I wish you best of luck for your MBA journey ahead. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pushti. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for having me over. It's been a lovely session.